Thank you for coming. We'll call to order the Woodland Park Planning Commission regular meeting of December 14th. And if you'd all stand and join, order roll call, excuse me. Microphone screwed me up.
Thank you, Chairman John DeVoe.
Here.
Jeff Watson.
Here.
Ellen Cara.
Here.
Ken Hartsfield.
Here.
Vicki Good. Here. Jerry Penland.
Here.
Peter Scanlon.
Here.
Charles Schrader.
Here.
Steve Stannard.
Here. If you'd join me for standing to the Pledge of Allegiance, thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody have a chance to go over the minutes? Any questions on the minutes? Any corrections to the minutes? Motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 4, public hearings. Flood Hazard Development Permit FHDP-17-001. Request to construct a driveway with storm culvert within zones A and AE of the Trout Creek Special Flood Hazard Area is requested by Mark McNabb, property owner, and Mark Heine, engineer, Haney probably, applicant on lots 1 and 2, Trout Creek Subdivision, CR 125, aka Trout Creek Road, for access to 4901 and 4961 County Road 25, also known as Trout Creek Road, Woodland Park, Colorado.
Thank you, Chairman DeVoe. We have a brief PowerPoint beginning with a general location map to show you where Trout Creek is located. You can see Woodland Park off to the east, Highway 24 to the Trout Creek Road entrance, also known as County Road 25. Down to the bend in the road is where Mark McNabb now owns 80 acres of property, and highlighted in red is the approximate location of the floodplain for Trout Creek. This is a closer look. Again, Highway 24, Trout Creek Road. Outlined in red is the 20 acres, which contains the creek. And then off to the east is the Sturman PUD. This property was part of that overall PUD, and about a year ago it was subdivided off from the 320 acres. So this 80-acre parcel was subdivided into 2 large lots. Now the owner is ready to move forward to construct 2 single-family homes, and in order to access this property, the driveway traverses through 2 small portions of the floodplain. So before we get into the floodplain, I'd like to review a little bit of terminology, and this diagram is supplied by FEMA to be able to explain what the special flood hazard area is. This is the area in which, when there is a flood, a 100-year storm, or a 1% chance per year of having a flood, the area with which the creek will go outside its banks. Usually it stays within a stream channel. The floodway is the designated area that contains the 100-year storm, as well as the flood fringe. So we will be using a term called base flood elevation, and that is the elevation at which the creek rises to during a 100-year storm. And those base flood elevations are mapped within the AE zone. Part of this entrance, right at the beginning of this driveway, it does not have a designated floodway, so it is in an A zone. So I want to make sure that you understand that only the AE zone has a designated base flood elevation at a certain elevation. The A zone does not. So back to the aerials. Down at the lower portion of this aerial is the road and the entrance to this property. That will be in the small portion in the A zone. And as it traverses north, about 70 feet or so in, then there are floodway elevations determined for this creek. These are the building envelopes that were established with the final plat, and also there is a conservation easement that is associated with this property, and because of that conservation easement, a specific building envelope had been identified on Lot 1, the southern tract, and then on the right is Lot 2, and its building envelope is also shown in yellow. Here is the final plat that designates lots 1 and 2. On the southern end, you can see Trout Creek Road, and this small portion here of Trout Creek is the A zone. And then you can see that just north of here, where the floodway and floodplain, the floodway is designated with a hatch mark that traverses north. There is only a very small portion of the driveway off of Trout Creek Road that is in the A zone. Then it moves outside the floodway. And then just as you get to the first building envelope, there is another small portion of this driveway that encroaches into the floodplain, which is the reason why we're here tonight, is to evaluate and hold a public hearing on the encroachment into the Trout Creek floodplain. This is a map that you can find on the Teller County Tax Assessor, and it identifies in light blue that area that is the A zone of the floodway close to Trout Creek Road, and then the hatch mark area is where there are designated elevations for the base flood elevation. And this other blue area is where the flood fringe is, where the creek will overflow its banks. And you can see I have identified the base flood elevations here at 8433. All the way down, it flows down toward the north to 8360. The subject property is outlined in red. We've talked about the Trout Creek floodplain. There's also Jenkins Creek, which comes down from Highway 24. And I've mentioned the AE zones and the base flood elevations. Here's a couple of photographs that shows the Trout Creek Road and the curve. I might note that there's ample sight distance for this driveway, so there are no concerns about entering and exiting this driveway. It is, in the lower photograph, an old dirt tracked road. There is an existing culvert right underneath this section before the gate. That culvert is going to be replaced. Right now it's a corrugated metal culvert, and the construction drawings call for an 18-inch reinforced concrete culvert. This attachment B, it shows the drainage basin that's about an acre, a little bit more than an acre and a half. That this will be the runoff that will approach to this culvert, which is pointed out by the red arrow, and it will carry about 5.7 cubic feet per second of runoff. This was submitted as part of the flood hazard permit, was the analysis of this runoff and being able to be handled through the new culvert and driveway. This was the plan view for the 18-inch reinforced concrete culvert. I've shown Trout Creek in blue, and then the driveway, you can see the driveway is slightly to the west and slightly elevated from the creek itself. This is the portion of the driveway that will be in the A zone of the floodplain. This was the site plan submitted by the applicant. Down on the lower end of the picture is Trout Creek Road with the driveway taking off and heading north to the two building sites north of Trout Creek Road. And you can see the hatch marked area is the AE portion of the floodway. Along with that site plan was also an erosion and sediment control plan and the stormwater master plan. This is the section for Site 1. I have labeled the A zone close to the road, and then where the zigzag portion is here, that begins the AE zone, and shown the floodway with the red lines and the driveway in yellow here. So you can see that the entrance portion of the driveway is the very small portion that traverses through the A zone. There was also a site plan for the new home. This will be evaluated in the future more with greater detail with the zoning development permit, the ZDP, as well as a formal grading permit. Once the flood hazard permit is granted, then the applicant is able to move forward with his grading and his house plans. This is the erosion and sediment control plan for the storm and the stormwater master plan for Site 2. So here is Site 2 up here to the north. And you can see that small portion of the driveway that is going to encroach onto the floodplain. It does not get into the floodway. It's within that flood fringe. And again, the site plan for Site 2. However, this will have a full application to the staff and the city engineer for grading and the ZDP for the house. The last plan that I wanted to share with you is that they also showed profiles at various locations for this driveway. It will be mostly a gravel driveway, 15 feet wide, and then within that small segment, we asked them to show what the grade of the driveway is as it relates to the base flood elevation. And in the first section, there is a 5-foot difference between the base flood elevation and the grade of the driveway. Toward the midsection, there's a 14-foot difference between the top of the 100-year storm and the base of the driveway. And on the very northerly section of that encroachment, there is a total of a 19-foot difference. So the driveway is well above the stream and the base flood elevation. So staff's findings, our city engineer, Ben Sheets, who is here this evening, found that the analysis and the calculations are acceptable by the applicant's engineer, and that the driveway and new culvert will not negatively impact the regulatory floodplain. As a result, the staff recommends that Planning Commission move to approve the flood hazard development permit application and the flood damage prevention plan, subject to 3 conditions. The first condition is that the permit approval is valid for 180 days from the date of permit issuance, and it is the staff who issues this permit. And we will issue that at the time that we're satisfied that the grading permit and the house permits are all appropriate. Let's see, the other number 2 is that when the completion of the construction takes place, there's a requirement for the engineer to certify that it was built according to the plans and according to the proposed elevation. And we'd like that to be done prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the first new single-family home at either Lot 1 or Lot 2. And that lastly, the grading permit application, including detailed grading plans and erosion sediment control plans, shall be submitted and approved by the city engineer prior to issuance of a building permit for each single-family home. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and Mark McNabb is here this evening also to answer your questions or discuss his project.
From your presentation, it doesn't look like the driveway will disrupt the flow of the stream in any form, will it?
Not at any
It's
point.
just sort of along the edge.
That's correct.
Thank you.
On the plans that you showed, the base flood elevation, the tightest one was 5 feet above the 100-year flood. Correct?
Yes.
Where's that road base in relationship to the building site? How far is that above?
I'll use this drawing. That 5-foot elevation is right about where my pointer is.
Okay.
So the house is going to be substantially higher
Okay.
than the driveway.
Okay.
Is there a reason the road goes down in there? Is that because of the terrain in that area?
Yes.
Instead of going straight across and staying completely out?
That's correct. This driveway was put in order to follow the contour lines. And if you'll recall, this portion of the driveway stayed at the same elevation all the way through. And that helps with the slopes so that it's not as steep.
It looks like by your contour lines, it gets really steep.
Yeah,
up
it
there.
does.
It's too hard to
Yeah.
go higher than that.
Yeah.
It's too steep.
I've got a question. The current galvanized system that is in there and that you're going to be replacing with an 18-inch cement, is that about the same size that's currently there? Is it bigger, smaller?
It is the same size.
On SP1, there's a cross-section of the driveway, and it says a 24-inch culvert. We've mentioned a 18-inch concrete culvert. Which one's going to be installed?
Mark, if I can just preface that the Mr. McNabb's engineer scoped both those sizes, and Mr. McNabb chose to show a 24-inch culvert on his site plan, but he can certainly install a larger culvert if he'd like to.
We do have the option of either corrugated 24 or an 18-inch concrete, we are going to go with the 24. I prefer having a larger volume.
Very good, thank you.
Any other questions? Wow, that's quick. Well, at this point, we have anything, she's presented that. Do you have anything else you want to add to that? Okay. Any more questions before we open the public hearing? Okay. Do we have anybody signed up for a public hearing? Do we have anybody that's in the audience, even though you didn't sign up, would like to talk about this? Because you're more than welcome to do that. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. At this point, we enter in discussion. So we're ready, folks. Just let it come forward. Any things you would like to ask about it? Anything for staff, Ms. McNabb? Any other questions that you would have? Because if you don't, then we need a motion. We would look forward to one.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the Paradise of Colorado filing number 3, final plat SUB 17005. No? I'm reading from the wrong minutes, excuse me. Flood Hazard Development Plan approval, FHDP 17-001, as submitted with the 3 conditions provided by staff.
Perfect.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second. Would you call for the question?
Yes. Beginning with Jeff Watson,
Yes.
Ellen Carrot,
Yes.
Ken Hartsfield,
Yes.
Vicki Good,
Yes.
Jerry Penland,
Yes.
Peter Scanlon,
Yes.
Charles Schrader,
Yes.
Steve Stannard,
Yes.
and Chairman John DeVoe.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay. Thank you. Hope you don't have a 500-year flood.
Yeah.
Just, okay, very good. Reports. Next on the agenda.
The first thing, I'd like to take advantage of our city engineer to be here to provide you with a report on the Paradise of Colorado and Paradise Estates drainage. Ben's been doing a lot of research and working with the neighborhood on this issue that you heard about at your last meeting.
Since the last meeting, I met with Mr. Ball and the owners of the properties at the Paradise of Colorado and Paradise Estates. That would be Mr. Will Brown and also representative of the bank, Mr. Chuck Mahoney. I've looked through a couple boxes of information we have, records, and been out to the site with the owners and walked the areas of erosion. And I just want to really just mention, remind you of what those major concerns were that they had. Pretty much 3 of them. Primary concern was the overall drainage and the drainage plan as the new development comes in to the north of the roundabout at Spacious Skies there. There was also concern expressed regarding the detention area near that roundabout. We call it the North Pond. There was also concern about the repair and maintenance of the areas that are disturbed right now where there's some erosion occurring, and also city public-owned facilities, the ponds and the channels themselves. And I was just going to go through each one of those and let you know what I come to the conclusion of. And well, let me just say that I still have some work to do, but so far I have a pretty good idea of what's been happening and what we need to do to resolve this. As far as the overall drainage, there's a couple studies. One was for Paradise Estates, filing 7, which encompassed pretty much the whole area below that roundabout. There was also a study for Paradise of Colorado that was named the Top of Paradise Development. These are it here. Pretty good size reports, a lot of information in there. But what I had the conclusion I found that what was designed was per city criteria at that time. And it appears that in the field, when I made field visits, that it is as designed. It was constructed as designed. Now there's a few issues with regard to sediment in that pond, that north pond, and we, the city, are going to, my street crews are going to clean that out. We've started on the pond at the, well actually we've cleaned out about 90 tons of sediment out of the pond at Paradise Circle and Majestic. So that's actually the small pond. The one up north is much larger, but best I can tell that those ponds were constructed per the design, and the design was in conformance with the criteria. Also, I've reviewed the storm sewer system in Majestic Parkway. There was concern that it was perhaps from the top of the roundabout to where the first inlets are, it was too far. The reports and the calculations seemed to indicate that it was designed in conformance. They were spaced properly. One concern Mr. Paul and neighbors had was that there was a lot of conveyance of stormwater flow in the street. And at the time, and well still to today, but to a smaller extent, stormwater flows are in the Front Range and the Pikes Peak area and throughout Colorado. They're designed to convey those minor storms and the major storms in the street. It's unfortunate, but at the intersection of Wintergreen and Majestic, the gentleman that talked about having a lot of flood damage to his home, that was a location where there's a lot of water coming together, but the best I can tell from the report that it was well within the criteria as far as how much you could convey in that street at that location. As far as the repair and maintenance, I've spoken with Will Brown and Mr. Mahoney and Mr. Perry, and they had given me full support that they will conduct work to repair and maintain those areas up there which have experienced a lot of erosion, that are kind of bare areas right now, and during storms sediment is being transported down into the system. But they've basically indicated that they are going to do something with that, and they are going to have engineers design that. I'm going to review those calculations, and then we'll work together to get that built before the next rainy season. The public, I mentioned the pond at the lower end, like I said, 90 tons. 90 tons is about 66 cubic yards of material, about 8 dump truck loads. And we've removed that material, basically put it back into the condition which it was supposed to be. So over time, a lot of sediment has come into that north pond, came into that channel on the north side of Majestic Parkway. So throughout that whole system, there's been sediment accumulating over the many years, and it hasn't been maintained the way it should have been. So we started at the downstream end, and at the beginning of next year, we're going to go upstream in that channel and clean that out, provide the adequate conveyance it should have, because when the sediment fills up, then if you get a big storm, it may overtop that bank. So it's going to basically be maintained and put back into the condition as it was designed. Also, let's see, I mentioned that channel, and as the citizens noticed that, yes, it has been, a lot of sediment's been deposited and vegetation's been established. Now we like how that looks from a stormwater perspective. We like how it looks, and it slows down the water, but it is riprap lined, so when we do maintain that, remove all the sediment, there's going to be vegetation that's going to be removed. It still will have what I call like a hard lining with that riprap, so it'll still protect the adjacent properties. I still have some work to do, and once we get those plans in for those erosion areas, we're going to be working really close together to get that figured out.
Is there a plan to maintain it regularly after you do the fix? Seems like it was left go for quite a bit of time.
Now that it's on my radar, yes. We took an inventory of our public ponds, and I believe we have 27 of them here in town. So we are doing inspections. Actually started last week, and we're going to be continuing until we got those inspected. And we're making notes and taking pictures of each one of those. So we are going to get a program to get those cleaned out and do some regular maintenance of those.
You have a sense of how the people feel out there, what you've been doing? You had a chance to communicate with them, and they realize what you guys are doing?
You know, Mr. Ball and I met, and since then I've been doing the research, but I have not met with him since, and this is the first time he's hearing this. But I think it would be a good idea for me to finish up my research and present that to him and his other neighbors to make sure we're all clear. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions from them when I'm talking about when I say, the street conveyance and how that's designed, things like that. So that is, I'm charged with doing that.
One of the things that you talked about in your presentation was it was basically built to spec.
Yes.
But is the spec good enough to work?
Since the time that those specifications, that was 2006 when that was approved. Now we have new criteria as of 2014. It's pretty close. It's very close. If I was to say, if we used this and compared it to the criteria, I think it would be within that criteria, yes.
And it was mainly a maintenance issue that caused some of this to take place?
Well, the sediment is lack of maintenance of the areas that were disturbed, and lack of maintenance from our perspective, the city's perspective, in maintaining those channels. So it's a combination.
So the city's going to work on the maintenance. The owners, the bank and that, are going to work on erosion that's taking place above on Mr. Brown's property.
Correct.
And you'll monitor that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Is anything going to be done to, you said the flow down the street is the way we design things in Colorado. Is there anything going to be done to kind of alleviate that situation for that homeowner that happens to be near the confluence?
I think the only thing that we could do is extend the storm sewer system up that street, which would be a considerable expense and disruption. It would basically rip up a big part of that street. It'd be very expensive as well. I think he has taken measures to construct swales around his house in the event that it does overtop and go into his property. I'm not sure if that's the case, but when I went out there, took a field visit, it looked like he has taken some measures to make sure that doesn't happen. And it's always important because, in that corner and a lot of places around town, the homes are lower than the street. So, when we get new ZDPs coming in and things like that, we make sure that there's swales, ditches, basically to make sure the water is channeled around that house instead of going right down in the garage.
Cleaning out the ponds should also help to
Absolutely.
relieve that.
Absolutely. Yeah, cleaning out the ponds provides, more storage. The water will be detained over time and less will, in theory, come out with, a minor storm. However, I do want to mention that the event that happened, I believe it was August 22nd, 2013, I looked at some of the rainfall data and then combined with the photos the citizens had presented, it looked like it was more than a 100-year storm. Per the calculations, the water should have come up to maybe the back of the curb, and the photos that were shown, it was clearly above that. So and looking at the rainfall data, it looked like there was anywhere, estimates. We don't have a USGS rain gauge station on Fountain Creek, but estimates from citizens around town estimate between 3.5 to 5 inches in a 24-hour storm. Well, the 100-year storm up here is about 3.6 inches in a 24-hour storm. So in all likelihood, it was greater than a 100-year storm. And that is what our design standard is in civil engineering for roadways and drainage, is the 100-year storm.
Good. Are you satisfied we've got this thing started for you? Name, rank, and serial number.
My name is Doug.
Very good. Excellent. Excellent. You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Can I ask a question? As far as going forward, when we're looking at new subdivisions, such as, say, the Aspendale, when I remember the swale that goes through, is there any way to get a report that goes along with the presentation showing any maintenance or the last known maintenance on a retention pond as part of the presentation to look at that? Because if you already have something that might need some maintenance to it, and then we turn around and just say, hey, let's go ahead and put 20 more houses on there, we're kind of, I think, not being, we don't have all the information to make a decision.
Well, at the time the engineer prepares his report and explains how the stormwater management system is going to be, they should be taking an inventory of the existing infrastructure and reporting in there that there's maintenance required, what's needed, if that facility needs to be expanded or not. So it all should be in there. And we as the city, my inspector and myself, we go out when there's new developments and we take a look at the properties and we compare that against the report and make sure that it's in sync.
And what she's asking, and I understand that, is there anywhere that a schedule is maintained? And you can't be responsible for what was in the past, but so that you know what maintenance are supposed to be done on which properties within the city, and there's some kind of a plan to do that and follow up on a regular basis.
From my knowledge, there hasn't been a plan,
Okay.
a plan that I'm aware of. I'm 4 months in now, but I have big plans,
Okay.
and one of those is to get some regular maintenance for all our public facilities, storm
Excellent.
sewers, culverts, ponds, everything that we as the cities were responsible for.
That's what I think. Is that what you were trying to ask?
Yeah.
Because I think that's what he said, and that's good. There needs to be a plan.
It's kind of like an oil change, when you need it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Discussion and comment on anything? Your report.
I really only have 2 brief items. First of all, there is the November Planning Department monthly report on your desk. And as we are closing the year, there's one more month to go. We've had over 30 single-family homes issued ZDPs. We've also received nearly 200 complaints with code enforcement activity, of which most of those have been resolved through voluntary compliance. So it's been a busy but good year so far. The second thing is that you do have your CML magazine on your desk, and it's focused on legal aspects for municipalities, and I'd encourage you to read one article in there that is about quasi-judicial activity and ex parte communication. So it's a nice little reminder. It's kind of a fun little article to read. And
Anything
other
else?
than that, our next meeting will be sometime in 2018. Probably not January 11th, but we could.
So the outline's already messed up.
Yes, your meeting schedule, that's on your desk. Yeah, we probably will not have a
Okay.
meeting at the beginning of the month.
Very good. Anybody, anything else? Any comments anybody like to make?
Quick question to Sally. Any of the current commissioners up for renewal, or?
Yes, we have 3 renewals, and that's Jeff Watson and Jerry Penland and Peter Scanlon. And they have all 3 resubmitted their applications.
Oh, very good, thank you.
And the council will do those appointments next Thursday.
They'll do it this month because of the fact
We-
they won't be around.
We weren't sure if we were going to, city council is not going to meet, at least right now it's planned not to meet January 4th. So we were afraid we might not have a full plate of commissioners.
Anything else? We're going to have a work session, short work session. Broncos. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.